Hello, Bears, and welcome to Friday, First Chapter Fridays. Today, in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, which we're a couple weeks into already, or I guess just a week into, it started last Friday. But anyway, I wanted to celebrate some Hispanic American authors. And this book is one that I discovered in the fantasy section. It's kind of a fantasy adventure and sort of a lightning thief meets the Hispanic mythology world. So this is filled with mythology from all over the Spanish-speaking world. And Charlie Hernandez and the League of Shadows is a book that's never been checked out before. It's been on our shelves for a while, but no one has discovered it yet until I discovered it today, and it sounded pretty good. It's by Ryan Calejo, and it was his first novel. He has since written a couple more installments of Charlie Hernandez, which, if you like this one, will get the other ones as well. So Charlie has grown up loving his abuela's myths. She tells lots of myths, and he always thought that they were just stories that she told to help keep kids in line. That myths were stories that were told, monsters and things that were told to keep kids from misbehaving. But he soon discovers, after his parents disappear and his house burns down, he soon discovers that maybe he's a little closer to these myths than he thought he was, as he enters this adventure with the League of Shadows. And I thought the book cover was kind of cool because you can see it has a flip side. So there's the kind of normal side with the kids on bikes. You see a couple horns there, which we'll hear about in a second. And then when you flip it over, it looks a little more sinister. So kind of a cool cover. All right, Charlie Hernandez and the League of Shadows. Chapter 1. Myths, my abuela used to say, are truths long forgotten by the world, which is probably why she collected them the way some people collect stamps or mugs with pictures of kittens on them. She gathered tales of enormous horned snake-like sea creatures, of two-headed vampire dogs with glowing red eyes, of terrifying man-eating ghouls that stalk the night, searching for naughty children to kidnap. The myths came from all over the Spanish-speaking world, from Madrid to Quito, Mexico City to Buenos Aires. Most of them were hundreds of years old, almost as old as the cultures that had inspired them. Some had spread quickly around the globe, spread like wildfire. Others never even left the tiny rural towns where they'd first been told. All her life, my grandma had been obsessed with Hispanic mythology, with all the legends and stories and folklore, and had spent years teaching them to me. When I was little, we used to hang out in the kitchen on lazy Saturday afternoons, me and my Power Rangers PJs and chancletas, my abuela telling her favorite tales from memory, making the epic battles and ghoulish monsters come to life with every gesture of her brown and wrinkled hands. Afterwards, she would quiz me on what I'd heard. We played this little game, sort of like Pictionary, where she'd draw a quick sketch of one of the characters, and I would have to guess who, or in most cases, what it was. If I got 4 in a row, she'd let me eat leche condensada right out of the can, which might have been the only thing I enjoyed more than listening to her stories. At the time, I thought it was just all for fun, a cool little game between the two of us. But I should have known better. My abuela hated party games. Chapter 2. I still remember the first night in the police station like it was yesterday. The tall sheriff's deputy telling me that everything was going to be okay, that there was nothing for me to worry about, that they'd find my parents, promising me that. Then he handed me a chewed up number 2 pencil, dropped a yellow notepad on the desk in front of me, and told me to write down everything I remembered, told me not to leave anything out, not even what I was feeling. I'm not sure which was more embarrassing, the fact that I could barely hold the pencil in my sweaty, trembling hands, or that I didn't have anything to write. See, I wasn't there the morning my parents went missing. I was at the local guitar shop. And I wasn't there later that afternoon when our house burned down. I'd biked over to Zoo Miami for the day. So 45 minutes later, I'd gotten down only 2 words, but they were the truest words I'd ever written. I'm scared. So scared I could barely breathe. So scared I could actually feel the blood pulsing through my hands and feet. But I didn't write any of that down. Instead, I sat frozen in the small interrogation room with tears running down my cheeks, waiting for the deputy to come back, waiting to wake up from this horrible nightmare. And that was when the pain came. It felt like two little bee stings up near my temples, hot and sharp, but lasting for only a moment. I remember running my hands through my hair and feeling something strange. I remember getting up and walking to the tiny half bathroom at the end of the hall for a closer look. I even remember the small, squeaky sounds my sneakers made on the scuffed and dirty tiles. But what I remember most was the pair of stubby horns I discovered growing out the sides of my head. They were a dark golden color, like honey mixed with dirt. Chapter 3. That day was the single worst day of my life, but the days that followed were almost as bad. Since I didn't have any living relatives, my abuela died when I was 9, and child services was having a hard time finding a place for me, I spent the next 2 weeks sleeping on a scratchy cot in one of the empty cells at the front of the police station. Every night I planted myself on the folding chair outside the station's 911 call center, listening in on the dispatchers, hoping to hear something, anything, about my parents. And every night I was disappointed. Obviously, with a pair of horns growing out of my head, I couldn't help but think back to my abuela's myths, especially the one about the morphling. In those stories, the young hero would always defeat his nemesis, an evil, narcissistic, twice-cursed witch, by manifesting some kind of animal trait. It was usually something odd, like fins or hooves or an armadillo shell. And even though it seemed sort of similar to what was happening to me, minus the whole fighting an evil witch part, of course, I honestly didn't see how a fairy tale could have anything to do with my current situation. They were just made up stories, kid stuff. Then, about a week or so later, the horns suddenly vanished. I couldn't explain it. I just woke up one morning, felt around underneath my hoodie, and they were gone. At that point, I just assumed, like most people probably would, that I'd had some sort of nervous breakdown, my terrified mind frantically mixing reality with fiction, trying to bring me back to a time when I felt safe, back to a time when I was surrounded by people who loved me and cared for me and would never let anything bad happen to me. At least that's what I kept telling myself. That is, until the unthinkable happened again. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that. They're nice short chapters, but I'll let you kind of imagine what the next unthinkable thing could be. And is Charlie turning into some sort of mythological creature? You'll have to find out. Come on down and check out the League of Shadows. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.